Exhorder's long-awaited comeback album, Mourn the Southern Skies, came out in 2019. They were on tour with Cataclysm when the album dropped. The album release show in New Orleans would happen in October of that year at the Halyomorpha. Since I had family in New Orleans at the time and craved Exhorder, I had to make the trip. Going to New Orleans around Halloween is cool because the setting and the legend of the city is spooky any time of the year. But around Halloween, the horses, the architecture, and the graveyards are perfect for the spooky spirit. I walked around outside the venue for a bit before the doors opened. Several old school fans who had been listening to the band since the 1980s were hanging around and eating at the restaurant next door. I sat with them and we all chatted about the band. Exhorder was New Orleans royalty. The metal scene's love for Slaughter and the Vatican grew over time, but they were always heroes locally. I walked to the stage door of the venue. Everyone in the band was around except for Vinny and Marzi. They'd been setting up and sound checking. Jason had just gotten his new bass with the Mourn the Southern Skies artwork. Sometime later, Andy Villafera showed up. He was the bass player in the 1980s and 90s, and for a little bit when they reunited in 2008. The band was doing a signing session, and Vinny was the last one to arrive to the venue. He seemed stressed and rushed inside. Most of the crowd consisted of longtime Exhorder fans. I talked to a lot of people who had stories of seeing them in the 1990s, seeing the reunions, and partying with the band. It felt like a family reunion. A lot of people knew each other and wanted to talk. There were local openers, and they did pretty good. When Exhorder got on, that was the 6th time that I'd seen them. They played the longest set that I'd seen them play. Mikey B3 was a guy who was in one of Vinny's other bands. He played a B3 organ for Yesterday's Bones on the album, and he played the organ for the song live at the show. Since the crowd was mostly older, there wasn't any stage diving or a lot of insanity. Aside from the insanity that was happening on stage, and it was excellent. There was an after party at Pat's Pub in Metairie. There was a cool guy I was talking to at the show, so we exchanged stories and split an Uber to Pat's Pub. The band arrived separately and everyone was just there to chill. It was getting late, I was getting tired. I said goodbye to Vinny before I left. He said, "Call me goddammit." Little did I know that the show would be the final show with that lineup of Exhorder. There was a tour booked with Overkill. They were coming to North Carolina in March, so I wouldn't have to fly anywhere to go see them. But weeks before the tour, it was announced that Vinny was out of the band. A founding member and major songwriter for the band wasn't going to be in North Carolina when the rest of them were coming through. It was the end of an era. I'd helped build a guitar for Vinny, I got to see Exhorder reunite in 2018, and saw that lineup 6 times. Many adventures were had with that band. And then it was over. When Exhorder came to Charlotte, I didn't go, but it was the last show they were able to play before COVID stopped the tour. In the coming months, I'd remember little things that some of the guys said, and some of the ways that they behaved that might have hinted that things weren't right in the band. Stuff that I didn't think much of at the time, but when I thought about them then, it seemed like the writing was on the wall. Even the moods of a couple of the guys seemed different at the album release show than I'd been used to seeing them in. Marzi would be out of the band later. Kyle started playing the guitar, and then Pat O'Brien of Cannibal Corpse fame would be hired as the second guitarist. The experience with Exhorder from 2018 until Vinny was out of the band showed me that bands are really a time and place. You get fixated on bands, follow them, listen to them religiously, and then sometimes things have to move on. I listen to Slaughter and the Vatican, and I think of seeing those guys for the first time ever in New York. I think of helping build a guitar for 2 months. I think of having dinner at Vinny's house and traveling to different cities to see the band. There were great times shared with the band. I'll always have that. High on Fire came to Greensboro, North Carolina for their tour supporting the album Cometh the Storm. I saw Sleep in 2019, but never got to see High on Fire. Another reason I wanted to go was because a friend of mine was working for the band. A guy I met all the way back in 2018 when the Exhorder reunion shows happened. The doors opened at 6, the show was to start at 7, and I got there a little after 5, just to see who might be roaming around outside. As soon as I got there, Matt Pike was coming around the corner. I, having never met the man before in my life, just instinctively said, "Hi Matt, how are you?" "I'm doing good, man, I'm just looking for a guy who gave me a guitar earlier." I said, "Well, would his name happen to be Murphy, because he's a friend of mine?" No, he didn't hand me the guitar, but he's inside if you want to see him. Okay, only if you're offering. Matt opened the door for me and walked me to the backstage area of Hangar 1819. 1 hour before the doors opened, mind you. My friend was on the couch and we caught up for a few minutes. I introduced myself to Matt and he said, "We'll get you a pass." I left my friend to do what he was doing and roamed around the lobby for a while, just watching the band set up. I was also waiting on Matt or somebody to get me that pass now that they mentioned it. The doors opened at 6 and people were coming in slowly. Matt was outside smoking a cigarette. Someone he knew walked up to him, they talked for a minute, and I saw Matt give him a pass. So I went outside and asked, "Hey Matt, did you find those passes?" "Murphy didn't give you one?" "No." "Well, here you go. Just hand it back to me by the end of the night." So there it was, an all-access pass for High on Fire. The thing was, I already had a ticket, and nobody at the venue talked to me since they saw Matt walk me inside. So I texted some friends about this unused ticket that I didn't want to go to waste. I walked outside to see if anybody didn't buy a ticket that needed one. I couldn't even give the ticket away. But a great thing about an all-access pass is that for a venue that doesn't allow re-entry, you can walk in and out all night. So that's what I did. I got merch, ran them out to the truck so I wouldn't have to carry them all night or stand in line for a while after the show. And it was nice. I did go backstage for a minute, mainly to see who was there. Jeff Matz was there among others. Jeff said hello to me. The opening bands were High Command and Zeta. Both acts brought the heat. Zeta was from Venezuela, and they had this big percussive sound. High on Fire got on stage, and of course the amplifier humming was ridiculously loud. I was in the front row with earplugs in, and when those guys started playing, I already knew my ears were still gonna ring a little the next day. Jeff was using a double neck, one neck being a guitar, the other being a bass. He switched between using that and a standard 4-string bass. The drums thundered, and Matt's guitar tone was nasty. Of course he was shirtless and sweating the whole night. They played several songs off the new album, and that made me even more excited to listen to it the next day. So the show was awesome, but the night was still young. I wanted a picture with Matt before I left. He was outside smoking a cigarette. I shook his hand and told him what a kick-ass job he did. Some friends of his were at the show, so we went to talk to them for a while. I talked to my friend for a bit. He hooked me up with a set list and a guitar pick. Thank you, Murphy. Then I sat outside the venue and waited. The guys in Zeta came out, so did Jeff Matz. I asked Jeff how heavy his double neck was, and he said he was okay for a couple songs, but he had to switch guitars often. That was partly what influenced the order of the set list. Everyone was smoking. Some of them were rolling cigarettes. Zeta said they got in trouble for having weed while touring in Texas, so they were trying to stay away from it so they wouldn't get in trouble with the law. Jeff told a story about how when he toured with Zeke in the early 2000s, the whole band got arrested in Texas for weed. Basically, they got pulled for speeding and the cops smelled weed and booked them all. Matt came back out. He was kind enough to take a picture with me. Then we all just sat and talked for a while. I said, "Man, your string gauges must be thick." He said he played 1262s. That led to an open discussion on gear, guitars, endorsements, and how easygoing his deals were with him working with other companies. He also said that a major guitar company stood him up, twice. Yeah, they were supposed to meet for breakfast, he showed up, they didn't. Later, they were supposed to meet for lunch, he showed up, they didn't. Wow. Eventually, everyone was smoking something. I felt a bit out of place and thought, man, where's a Cohiba Black when I need one? Someone asked Matt for a lighter. He gave him his torch lighter. He said, "It's perfect for lighting up a cigarette or weed in the wind." I said, "It's perfect for a cigar, too." So we had a brief conversation about cigars after that. He said he liked Cuban cigars and he had some saved for a day off. Eventually, Matt said, "Tony, thank you for coming out." And he shook my hand. He was cool enough to remember my name. What he didn't remember was the pass that he gave me. So after he went back inside, I thought, I'm gonna get out of here now before anyone remembers the pass. That was my first all-access pass I ever got from any band. When I helped build Vinny LaBelle's guitar and saw the Exhorder reunion shows in 2018, Vinny said he'd get me one and it didn't pan out. Over the years, I've been on the guest list for shows, I'd gotten to hang out with band members, all sorts of cool stuff happened with people I knew and didn't know. But I never got a pass. It wasn't until I had this chance encounter with Matt Pike, whom I'd never met before, where that small dream was finally realized. My first time seeing Lords of Acid was in 2017 in Greensboro, North Carolina. Mia was their singer for that tour. The next tour I saw them on was in 2019 at the Charlotte, North Carolina date. Marika was singing for them, as she sang on the new album, Pretty in Kink. So when they announced they were coming to Charlotte again in 2024, I just had to go. Lords of Acid have always been known for their wild shows, and again, they had a new singer, Gigi. But this is how it gets interesting. Gigi and I had been talking online for a while. Among the things we bonded over were cats, so I messaged offering to take her to a cat cafe in Charlotte. That didn't pan out, but I did show up to the venue early because she said she wanted to meet me. Their dancer Trudy was outside, so I talked to her for a few minutes. She told me the story about how she met the band and how she started working with them. Gigi came out and opened the gate for me. We hugged and started walking to the bus. A security guy was sitting a few feet away. He saw her open the gate for me, and he was getting on her about where I was going and if I had a pass. She was like, "He's with me, he's coming to the bus." He kept pressing her about it. "He's my friend, he's just coming to the bus." Finally he said, "Okay, but if he's going in the venue, it'll have to be through that door on the other side." Okay? Noted. Security will be a common topic that will come up through this story, as they were real professional hall monitors that night. I understand they were doing their jobs, and the last thing anybody wants is another dime bag situation. But when you see the damn singer of the band escort somebody in front of you, and you're getting on them about passes, that's a little ridiculous. On the tour bus, they had the Pomona, California show streaming on the TV. It was just Trudy and Gigi, with the other members occasionally popping in and out. Oliver Adams came on. It was the first tour he'd been on since 2000. He saw me and shook my hand. Gigi fed me. She had this pasta she'd made. It was really good.
Making pasta, eh?
Looks pretty good.
Yeah, it is frozen. I need to warm it up. But you're gonna love it. It's good Italian pasta.
Well, I do have some.
In it, you know.
I do have some Italian in my family, so I do enjoy a good Italian dish.
That's nice.
Now this looks and smells delightful. Thank you, Gigi.
You're welcome.
Actually, she was a little sick because the air conditioning was constantly running in Atlanta's venue the night before and on the tour bus. We all talked for a while. They showed me some stuff they found on the beach in Florida. They had a flogger on the bus as it was part of their show, so we talked about flogging for a minute. This detail will be important later. Lords of Acid have always been known to invite women on stage to dance with them for a couple songs. Gigi said, "I want you to come dance with us." Alright. They had their meet and greet at 5. I went through the door the security guy told me to go through. The security at the door asked to see a pass, but I wasn't given one. I told them I was just on the tour bus. They told me to go in through this door. The supervisor was called, they conversed for a minute, and I was escorted out. The security guy from inside told the security guy at the gate, "Lords of Acid aren't allowed to escort anyone." They're the fucking band? They should be allowed to do whatever they want? There wasn't anything anyone could do about it, so I hung outside and talked to people for a while. Doors opened at 6:30. Praga Khan's cello band opened. Apparently it was their first American tour since the early 2000s. Oliver played the drums, and even though he had major involvement with Lords of Acid over the decades, he didn't play with them. They did play the theme for the 1995 Mortal Kombat movie. That was fun to scream along with. When Lords of Acid took control, they opened with Sex Bomb. As expected, the show was loads of fun. The set list was full of classics. Trudy was in a leather puppy outfit for You Belong to Me. This was Gigi's first American tour with the band, and she carried herself like she'd been doing it for years. Despite being a little sick, she was full of energy, sexy as hell, and I didn't hear any sour notes. They started playing Spank My Booty, and they were bringing women up to dance with them. Gigi pointed right at me to come up and dance with them, and I went for it. I was the only guy that got on stage to dance with them. There I am flashing everyone with the cat nipple pasties I had on. There I am wearing the Voodoo U light-up horns I got from when I first saw Lords of Acid. There I am being flogged on stage. And there I am, happily returning the favor. Proud moment. Trudy invited me up to dance with them for pussy. When I got to the side of the stage, security weren't letting anyone else up. So there was a small crowd of women at the side of the stage who were partly going, "What the fuck, they called us up." But they were also dancing, not letting the moment be ruined. It was weird because you had Lords of Acid on stage trying to get everyone loose and wild, and then you had the venue staff going, "You shall not pass!" After the show, some of the band came out to mingle with the crowd. Praga thanked me for coming, having seen me on the bus earlier. I told him I'd be hanging out if they'd be willing to have me. Gigi was taking pictures at the barrier. I told her the same thing. She said, "Good." So I waited by the gate outside for a little bit. The message I'd sent her was, "Hey, I have an idea. What if you stayed on the bus, gave someone your pass to hand to me, then I'd hand it back to you when I'm on the bus. That way security won't bother anyone." She came out a few minutes later, took the pass off of her neck, and handed it to me. I looked at the security guy, held up the pass, and said, "You see this?" I opened the gate, let myself in, and walked with her to the bus. Praga's wife, Inya, cooked some grilled chicken. It was delicious. Of course, I complimented everyone on how awesome the show was. There were talks of magic healing crystals, meditation, and friendships, among other things. While a couple of activities and conversations will remain off the record, the band's guest of honor hypnotized Trudy. At first it was a thing we were all giggling at, but we all fell silent as it went on. It was powerful to watch. Praga was feeling some Pink Floyd, so most of Wish You Were Here was played. Some of us sang along with him. Then The Great Gig in the Sky was played on repeat. Praga said he loved Pink Floyd because the songs were long, and that gave the songs time to build and it made them more rewarding by the end. At some point, Praga said he loved my energy, just as Gigi told me earlier. He said, "I can usually tell a good person when I see one." I'd been listening to the band for a long time, so that was really touching to hear. It looked like he was about to turn in for the night, so I started to say my goodbyes to everyone. Before I left, though, I took off my cat pasties and placed them on the back of the tour bus. I partied with Lords of Acid. On the drive home, I kept saying to myself, "Wow, that actually happened." That was easily one of the best nights of my life, and that's not an exaggeration. They were all so nice, and that easily became my favorite time seeing the band. I can't sing their praises enough. Thank you for listening to my stories, and grind on.